Victoria and Prince Albert of Saxe-Coburg and Gotha were cousins, and their uncle, Leopold I, King of the Belgians, initially suggested that they should marry. He helped arrange for Prince Albert to visit her with his family in 1836. After their first meeting, Victoria wrote, "Albert is extremely handsome. His hair is about the same color as mine. His eyes are large and blue, and he has a beautiful nose and a very sweet mouth with fine teeth, but the charm of his countenance is his expression, which is most delightful." Victoria then wrote to her uncle afterwards to thank him for the prospect of great happiness you have contributed to give me in the person of dear Albert. He possesses every quality that could be desired to render me perfectly happy. Albert visited Victoria for the second time in 1839, and Victoria proposed to him after just 5 days. Queen Victoria and Prince Albert married on the 10th of February 1840 at St. James's Palace in London. They had 9 children between 1840 and 1857. Victoria, Edward, Alice, Alfred, Helena, Louise, Arthur, Leopold, and Beatrice. Queen Victoria reigned for 63 years over the British Empire, as it expanded into a global industrial power. So who were her 9 children, and what did they do during their lives? Princess Victoria, known to her family as Vicky, was born on the 21st of November 1840. She held the titles Princess Royal, German Empress, and Queen of Prussia. When Victoria was born, the doctor proclaimed, "Oh, madam, it's a girl," to which the Queen responded, "Never mind, next time it will be a prince." She was born a princess as the daughter of the Queen, and was also heir presumptive to the throne from birth until her brother was born 1 year later. Queen Victoria wanted to give her children a complete education, as she believed she had not been sufficiently prepared to take on government affairs. Albert, on the other hand, received a thorough education through his uncle King Leopold I of Belgium. Their daughter Victoria began learning French from 18 months old and German from the age of 4. In addition, she learned Greek and Latin. She also studied subjects including arithmetic, geography, history, literature, and science, and her father taught her philosophy and politics. Her studies began around 8 a.m. and finished at 6 p.m. Victoria was known as an excellent pupil with a great desire for learning. 11-year-old Victoria first met 19-year-old Frederick when she guided his family around the Great Exhibition of 1851. After Frederick returned home, he began writing to Victoria. Her mother, Queen Victoria, encouraged this, hoping to improve ties with Prussia. In 1855, Frederick returned to visit Victoria, who was now age 15, and after 3 days, he proposed to marry her. Princess Victoria, at the age of 17, married to Prince Frederick of Prussia on the 25th of January 1858 at the Chapel Royal of St. James's Palace in London. Victoria and Frederick had 8 children, including Wilhelm, who became the last German emperor and king of Prussia, and his sister, who became Queen Sophia of Greece. Frederick's father died in March 1888, making Frederick the German emperor and king of Prussia, Frederick III. Victoria then became German Empress and Queen of Prussia. However, Frederick III died in June 1888 from laryngeal cancer, 99 days after becoming emperor. He was succeeded by their son Wilhelm II. After the death of her husband, Victoria became known as Empress Frederick. Victoria then built a castle at Kronberg im Taunus, in Hesse, Germany. She named it Friedrichshof to honor her late husband, and she lived there for the rest of her life. It is now a hotel with an 18-hole golf course, designed by the 34th President of the United States, Dwight D. Eisenhower. Victoria enjoyed painting and would regularly walk in the morning and then spend many hours reading and writing letters in her library. Victoria died of breast cancer on the 5th of August 1901, age 60, around 6 months after her mother Queen Victoria died. Prince Albert Edward, known to his family as Bertie, was born on the 9th of November 1841. He held the titles Prince of Wales and King Edward VII. He chose to reign as king under the name Edward, rather than Albert Edward, as he did not want to undervalue the name of Albert, his father, with whom the name should stand alone. Queen Victoria decided that Edward should marry Princess Alexandra, who was the eldest daughter of Prince Christian of Denmark. The Queen sent 19-year-old Edward to Germany to meet Princess Alexandra in September 1861. This was under the watch of his eldest sister Victoria, who was to assist the relationship any way she could. The meeting went well, and they became very close. Prince Edward married Princess Alexandra of Denmark on the 10th of March 1863 in St. George's Chapel at Windsor Castle. Edward and Alexandra had 5 surviving children, including the future British King George V, and Maud, who became Queen of Norway. Edward had a reputation as a playboy prince, and this damaged his relationship with his mother. He liked to socialize with many women, including Lady Randolph Churchill, singer Hortense Schneider, Daisy Greville, Countess of Warwick, actresses Sarah Bernhardt and Lily Langtry, noblewoman Lady Susan Vane Tempest, prostitute Julia Bonini, wealthy humanitarian Agnes Kaiser, and Alice Keppel. He is believed to have had at least 55 liaisons throughout his marriage. Coincidentally, Camilla Parker Bowles, who is Alice Keppel's great-granddaughter, became the mistress and then wife of the current British King Charles III. Edward was Prince of Wales and successor to the British throne for 59 years. As the eldest son of the Queen, he became Duke of Cornwall and Duke of Rothesay at birth. As the son of Prince Albert, he received the titles Prince of Saxe-Coburg and Gotha and Duke of Saxony. He was also made the Prince of Wales, Earl of Chester, Earl of Dublin, a Knight of the Garter, and a Knight of the Thistle. He developed good relations between Britain and many European countries, notably with France, for which he was called the Peacemaker. However, he had a poor relationship with the German Emperor Wilhelm II, who was also his nephew. Edward has been recognized as the first truly constitutional British sovereign and the last British king to have effective political power. He suffered ill health and died on the 6th of May 1910, age 68. He had disliked his nephew, German Emperor Wilhelm II, and worried that he would create war in Europe. Sure enough, 4 years after Edward's death, World War I began, which set Britain on a path against Germany. Princess Alice was born on the 25th of April 1843. She held the title Grand Duchess of Hesse and by Rhine. Alice's sister Victoria introduced her to German Prince Louis of Hesse by inviting him to England in 1860 to watch the Ascot races in the company of the royal family. Alice and Louis got along well, and Queen Victoria was impressed by him. At the end of his visit, Louis asked for a photograph of Alice. She in turn said that she was attracted to him, and the following year, they became engaged. The couple were married in July 1862 in a private ceremony which the Queen described as more of a funeral than a wedding. They lived in Darmstadt, Germany, but it was an unhappy life for Alice as the relationship with her husband deteriorated over time. Alice and Louis had 7 children, including Alex, the last Empress of Russia, and Victoria, the great-grandmother of the current British King Charles III. Her daughter Alex, who married Tsar Nicholas II of Russia, and their children were all killed by the Bolsheviks in 1918, just 16 months after being pushed to abdicate. Her daughter Elizabeth, who married Grand Duke Sergei Alexandrovich of Russia, was also killed by the Bolsheviks the day after her sister Alex was murdered. Her grandson Louis Mountbatten, the son of her eldest daughter Victoria, was the last Viceroy of India. He was murdered in 1979 by the IRA. Her great-grandson Prince Philip of Greece and Denmark, who was the grandson of her daughter Victoria, then married British Queen Elizabeth II. The Austro-Prussian War in 1866 saw Alice's husband Louis go off to command the Hessian cavalry against the Prussians. Alice was heavily pregnant, but spent her time managing field hospitals. The Prussian troops got to the outside of Darmstadt before an armistice was agreed. The Prussians entered Darmstadt, and Alice spent her time looking after the wounded there. Alice became friends with Florence Nightingale and used her advice regarding cleanliness and ventilation of hospital wards to improve conditions for patients. Alice stayed interested in nursing after the war, which concerned Queen Victoria. She wrote to her recently married daughter Louise, "Don't let Alice pump you. Be very silent and cautious about your interior." In 1878, there was an outbreak of diphtheria in the Hessian court. Alice's husband and children became infected, and she did her best to care for them. However, her 4-year-old daughter Marie eventually choked to death from the disease. Alice tried to keep the news from her children but eventually told her son Ernest. He was distraught, so she kissed his head to comfort him, but this inadvertently infected her with the disease. She soon became seriously unwell. Her last words were, "Dear Papa," before falling unconscious and dying. Alice died on the 14th of December 1878, age 35. She was the first of Queen Victoria's 9 children to die. Prince Alfred, known to his family as Affy, was born on the 6th of August 1844. He held the titles the Duke of Saxe-Coburg and Gotha and the Duke of Edinburgh. King Otto of Greece abdicated in 1862, and Alfred was chosen by Greek royalty to ascend the Greek throne. However, Queen Victoria was against this, as she and her husband had already planned for Alfred to succeed to the Duchy of Saxe-Coburg and Gotha in Germany. His ascension to the Greek throne was subsequently blocked by the British government. Alfred wanted to join the navy from a young age, and became a naval cadet at the age of 14, before rising up the ranks to become captain in 1866. Lord Charles Beresford said he has a great natural ability for handling a fleet, and that he would have made a first-class fighting admiral. He later became Commander-in-Chief of the Mediterranean Fleet, and then Commander-in-Chief, Plymouth. He was finally made Admiral of the Fleet in 1893. Percy Scott said that, as a Commander-in-Chief, the Duke of Edinburgh had, in my humble opinion, no equal. He handled a fleet magnificently, and introduced many improvements in signals and maneuvering. He took a great interest in gunnery. Alfred married the Grand Duchess Maria Alexandrovna of Russia, daughter of Russian Emperor Alexander II, at the Winter Palace, St. Petersburg, Russia, on the 23rd of January 1874. Alfred and Maria had 5 surviving children, including their eldest daughter Marie, who became the last queen of Romania until their monarchy was eradicated by communists. Alfred was the Duke of Edinburgh from 1866 until his uncle Ernest II died, who was the reigning Duke of Saxe-Coburg and Gotha. Alfred's elder brother Edward originally inherited the right of succession to the Duchy of Saxe-Coburg and Gotha. However, he renounced his rights when he married in 1863, passing it to his younger brother Alfred, who was next in line. Alfred became the sovereign Duke of Saxe-Coburg and Gotha in the German Empire on the 22nd of August 1893, and held this title for 7 years until his death. Alfred died on the 30th of July 1900, age 55, of throat cancer, while he was staying near Schloss Rosenau, the Duke of Saxe-Coburg and Gotha's summer residence in Germany. His mother, Queen Victoria, died only 6 months later. Princess Helena, known to her family as Lenchen, was born on the 25th of May 1846. She held the title Princess Christian of Schleswig-Holstein. As a teenager, Helena enjoyed pursuing Prince Albert's librarian, Karl Ruland. It is not known if the relationship became physical, but their letters show they were fond of one another. However, after a few years, Queen Victoria found out that romance was blossoming with the royal servant, and he was quickly dismissed from the royal household, which ended their relationship. This prompted the Queen to search for a husband for Helena. However, being a middle daughter and the Queen's insistence that she should live nearby made her less desirable to other royal families. Princess Helena met Prince Christian of Schleswig-Holstein while she was visiting Coburg in 1865. They married less than a year later on the 5th of July 1866 at Windsor Castle. The marriage was controversial as Prince Christian's family claimed Schleswig and Holstein, which was fought over between Prussia and Denmark. Denmark was defeated, and the territory was given to Prince Christian's family. Prussia later occupied the duchies, but the title of the Duke of Schleswig-Holstein was still claimed by Prince Christian's family. A split occurred in the British royal family as the marriage upset Alexandra, Princess of Wales, who was the daughter of King Christian IX of Denmark. She was the wife of Helena's brother Edward, who was heir apparent to the British throne. On the other side, Helena's sister Victoria, Queen of Prussia, supported the marriage. Helena and Christian had 4 surviving children, including her eldest and favorite son Christian, who died of typhoid age 33, while serving in the Boer War in 1900. Princess Marie Louise, Helena's daughter, described her as very lovely, with wavy brown hair, a beautiful little straight nose, and lovely amber-colored eyes. She was very talented, played the piano exquisitively, had a distinct gift for drawing and painting in watercolors. Her outstanding gift was loyalty to her friends. She was brilliantly clever, had a wonderful head for business. Helena worked as her mother Queen Victoria's unofficial secretary. She wrote letters for the Queen and became her crutch, staying by her side and keeping her company. She was an active supporter and campaigner for charities, and was a founding member of the British Red Cross. Helena died on the 9th of June 1923, aged 77, 6 years after her husband. Princess Louise, known to her family as Little Miss Y, due to her inquisitive nature, was born on the 18th of March 1848. She held the title the Duchess of Argyll. Louise did not wish to marry a prince, so she chose John Campbell, Marquess of Lorne, and heir to the Duke of Argyll. There had not been a marriage between the daughter of the monarch and a British subject since 1515. Her choice of husband was further complicated as his father was a strong supporter of Prime Minister William Ewart Gladstone. The Prince of Wales worried that the marriage could draw the royal family into political disputes. Queen Victoria decided that the marriage should proceed as it would bring new blood into the royal family. Princess Louise married John Campbell, Marquess of Lorne, on the 21st of March 1871. However, they had no children. There were rumors Louise had an affair with Lord Stamfordham, the Queen's assistant private secretary. Her sister Beatrice helped spread the rumors, calling it a scandal. Beatrice's husband claimed to have seen Lord Stamfordham drinking with Louise at dinner. But she claimed the affair was made up by Beatrice and Helena to undermine her. Rumors also circulated of an affair with the sculptor Sir Joseph Edgar Boehme, who died in her presence at his studio. Historian Lucinda Hawksley said the two had a long-lasting love affair. Louise was jealous of her sister Beatrice's husband, Prince Henry of Battenberg. Louise was said to be the Queen's most beautiful daughter. While she grew apart from her husband, Beatrice and Henry stayed close, which likely made Louise jealous. When Henry died, Louise said, "He was almost the greatest friend I had. I too miss him more than I can say." Louise had studied art from a young age. However, women then only received training for art teachers or designers rather than for fine artists. She was the most artistic of her sisters and was a great artist and sculptor. Many of her sculptures are visible to this day. Her statue of Queen Victoria in coronation robes is still in place at Kensington Palace. Lorne became Governor-General of Canada in 1878, making Louise vice-regal consort. Together they founded the Royal Canadian Academy of Arts. Louise enjoyed sleighing and skating in winter while living there. However, she was injured in a sleighing accident in 1880, when her carriage overturned and it was dragged for 400 yards. Louise hit her head on the roof and was knocked unconscious. She was severely concussed and doctors said it was a wonder her skull was not fractured. She returned to England soon after the accident, while Lorne stayed in Canada for another 2 years. Her full name was Louisa Caroline Alberta, and the province of Alberta in Canada was named after her in 1905. Lake Louise and Mount Alberta were also named after her. She was given the middle name Alberta in honor of her father Prince Albert. She supported the feminist movement and corresponded with famous campaigners. She supported the right for women to vote and equality for women, against her mother Queen Victoria's beliefs. Louise died on the 3rd of December 1939, aged 91. She died wearing the wedding veil that she originally wore 70 years earlier at her wedding to Lorne. Prince Arthur was born on the 1st of May 1850. He held the titles the Duke of Connaught and Strathearn and the Governor-General of Canada. Arthur wanted to join the army from an early age and entered the Royal Military Academy at age 16. He joined his father's own regiment, the Rifle Brigade, in 1869, where he had a long career as an army officer. He was made Commander-in-Chief of the British Army in Ireland in 1900, but his preference was to be in South Africa in the campaign against the Boers. He served in the British Army for 40 years throughout the world, including in Canada, Egypt, Ireland, India, and South Africa. Prince Arthur married Princess Louise Margaret of Prussia on the 13th of March 1879 in St. George's Chapel at Windsor Castle. Princess Louise Margaret was the great-niece of the German Emperor Wilhelm I, who was also coincidentally Arthur's godfather. Arthur was created a royal peer on his mother's birthday in 1874, receiving the titles the Duke of Connaught and Strathearn, and also the Earl of Sussex. Arthur and Louise Margaret had 3 children, including Margaret, who became Princess of Sweden. Arthur was appointed as Governor-General of Canada in 1911 and brought his wife and daughter, Princess Patricia, with him. He performed duties such as the ceremonial opening of Parliament. He enjoyed ice skating and held skating parties at Rideau Hall, the royal residence in Canada's capital, Ottawa. At the start of World War I, Arthur wore his field marshal's uniform and addressed troops at their barracks before they went to war. This was without ministerial advice and was seen as ignoring constitutional conventions. His daughter gave her name for the formation of a new regiment in 1914 called Princess Patricia's Canadian Light Infantry, and it is still active in the Canadian Armed Forces. His term as Canada's Governor-General ended in 1916. Arthur was reportedly Queen Victoria's favorite child, and he was her last surviving son. He was a Freemason and was elected as Grand Master of the United Grand Lodge of England in 1901. He was also president of the Boy Scouts Association and friends with Lord Baden-Powell. and while he retired from public life in 1928, he maintained his presence in the army, acting as a figurehead during the Second World War. Arthur died on the 16th of January 1942, aged 91. Prince Leopold was named after his uncle, King Leopold I of Belgium, and was born on the 7th of April 1853. He held the titles the Duke of Albany and the Earl of Clarence. Leopold was friends with the daughter of the Vice-Chancellor of Oxford, Alice Liddell, who the story Alice's Adventures in Wonderland was written after. He was godfather to her son, who was named Leopold after him. It is rumored he was interested in both Alice and her sister Edith, but nothing came of it. Queen Victoria wanted her children to marry into other Protestant royal families, and suggested the daughter of the German prince, George Victor, of Waldeck and Pyrmont. His other daughter had already married King William III of the Netherlands. The meeting went well, and Leopold and Helen became engaged. Prince Leopold married Princess Helen of Waldeck and Pyrmont on the 27th of April 1882 in St. George's Chapel at Windsor Castle. Leopold and Helen had 2 children, including Charles Edward, the last sovereign Duke of Saxe-Coburg and Gotha, which makes Leopold the great-grandfather of the King of Sweden, Karl XVI Gustav. Poet laureate Lord Tennyson and philosopher James Martineau said that Leopold was a young man of a very thoughtful mind, high aims, and quite remarkable acquirements. He entered Christ Church, Oxford in 1872, and studied a variety of subjects and became president of the Oxford University Chess Club. He left university with an honorary doctorate in civil law. After graduating, he traveled around Canada and the United States with his sister Louise, whose husband was Governor-General of Canada. He was made patron of the arts and literature, and was an unofficial secretary to Queen Victoria. Leopold was diagnosed with hemophilia as a child, which he inherited from his mother, Queen Victoria. In 1884, he suffered from joint pains, which is a common symptom of the disease. Doctors recommended he went to Cannes to recuperate, but his pregnant wife decided to stay at home. While in Cannes, he suffered a fall which resulted in him hitting his head and injuring his knee. The next day, on the 28th of March, 1884, he died from a cerebral hemorrhage, aged 30. Princess Beatrice was born on the 14th of April, 1857. She held the title Princess Henry of Battenberg. Beatrice was linked to Louis Napoleon, son of French Emperor Napoleon III. He moved to England after France's defeat in the Franco-Prussian War, and became close with Beatrice. There were rumors of marriage, but he died in 1879 during the Anglo-Zulu War. Beatrice was also linked to Prince Louis of Battenberg, however he ended up marrying her niece, Princess Victoria of Hesse and by Rhine. While at their wedding in Germany, Beatrice became close to the groom's brother, Prince Henry of Battenberg. Upon returning to England, she announced her intention to marry. Queen Victoria became silent with Beatrice, only communicating with her by letter, as she suddenly realized she may lose her baby. Alexandra, the Princess of Wales, reminded the Queen of the happiness that Beatrice had brought to her late husband Albert, which encouraged the Queen to talk with Beatrice again. A year after Beatrice announced her intention to marry, the Queen finally agreed on condition that they both live with her and that Beatrice would continue as her unofficial secretary. Princess Beatrice married Prince Henry Maurice of Battenberg on the 23rd of July, 1885, with them becoming known as Their Royal Highnesses Prince and Princess Henry of Battenberg. Beatrice and Henry had 4 children, including Victoria Eugenie, who became the Queen of Spain. Queen Victoria shut herself off from almost everybody when her husband died, but her daughters Alice and Beatrice gave her the support she needed. Beatrice later said, "I don't like weddings at all. I shall never be married. I shall stay with my mother." Beatrice's sisters, Alice, Helena, and Louise, had worked as the Queen's unofficial secretaries by writing letters on her behalf and dealing with political correspondence. This role also came to Beatrice, and the Queen began dictating journal entries for her to write down too. Queen Victoria created hundreds of journals over her life, which recorded her daily thoughts on family and state affairs. She entrusted Beatrice with removing all private details from them for publication once she died. Over a 30-year period, 66% of the original entries were removed, with 111 edited journals being published. Beatrice traveled everywhere with the Queen, and despite being the shyest of her siblings, she became the most well-known to the public. Beatrice's husband died 10 years after they married, while fighting in the Anglo-Asante War. This pushed her closer to her mother's side until eventually the Queen died in 1901. Beatrice said, You may imagine what the grief is. I, who had hardly ever been separated from my dear mother, can hardly realize what life will be like without her, who was the center of everything. She was governor of the Isle of Wight from 1896 until 1944. Beatrice was the last of her siblings and died on the 26th of October, 1944, age 87, 66 years after her sister Alice had died.